Hi, everybody.
Hello, I'm Ryan.
I'm Bethany.
And we are Ryan and Bethany Board Game Reviews.
And today we have a discussion video for you. I have said, if you've watched our channel for any length of time, I've said multiple times that I'm pretty spoiled as a gamer because Ryan gets to teach me the majority of the games that we play, and I think that Ryan is very, very, very good at teaching games to where I consider myself pretty spoiled about it. And sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes when other people teach me games, all I think is, you're not Ryan. I don't say that to them, but I do think it. So I thought it would be really fun to listen to Ryan talk about his thoughts behind teaching, why and how he teaches a certain game or games the way that he does to make it so people like me are engaged and are able to play and consider myself spoiled that he gets to be my main teacher all the time. Like, seriously.
Well, thank you, darling.
I'm spoiled.
All right, so I think the main thing that I want to start with is talking about why I decided to spend some time with this topic, right? A lot of, as gamers, teaching is like the least fun part, right?
No, it's not true. Reading the rule book is the least fun part.
Well, that's the first part of teaching. So I think the first thing was recognizing what a bad teacher is. Before we were considering ourselves board gamers, we liked board games, we liked card games and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we were invited over to this is like over a decade ago, like 15 years ago or something.
It was before our eldest was born. That's
yeah,
how long ago it was.
Very long time ago.
Yes.
We were invited over for a game night by some board gamers, and it was games that we were not familiar with because we weren't board gamers. We didn't know the hobby. We didn't know there was really a hobby at the time, really. And we didn't have the terminology, right? There's a certain amount of terminology that board gamers use amongst each other that people who aren't in the hobby don't know and recognize. And so these board gamers were teaching us these games. They taught it very quickly and then started playing. And it was very clear very early on that we didn't know what was going on. It was one of those things we were kind of looking at each other like, did you pick that up? Do you understand what's going on?
And they split us up, so Ryan and I were playing the same game, but just in separate groups, but we were like right next to each other. It's just like, what is happening here? And this game is a well-known, very well-beloved game that we actually own now. But when we were playing it, we both left thinking we hated the game.
Yeah, it was miserable. It was horrible. We got crushed. Like we're talking like
crushed.
Like hardly any points. Like 0-ish points to like 100 points. It was like that kind of thing. And then on top of that, they had the audacity to like brag about it. Haha! Yes, high five, we won.
Yeah.
And we're like, what?
Yes.
You feel good about that? You felt good about teaching us badly and then beating us?
I even remember at one point with your group that he somebody tried doing something. I remember he wasn't yelling, but he was like, no, you can't do that. I'm like, dude, they don't know how to play the game. They don't know what they can and can't do. Do you remember that?
Yes.
He was like yelling.
It was a terrible experience, and it was like, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah. Come to find out, we didn't hate the game. We just hated how it was taught.
Yeah, so that's kind of what spurred a lot of this discussion, right? So I went to Board Game Geek. This is a fantastic website for all things board game related, and there are just forums and forums and forums on all different board game topics. But what I was diving into specifically was on topics of how to teach a game.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of wisdom there. I had kind of data mine for it, find how to teach games, combine it with my own personal flavor and style, and how to best teach, because we wanted to be we were kind of the hub of our little group a little bit of teaching new games. And so we wanted to be able to teach those well and explain them in a way that made sense and was fun. So I think that's where that kind of stemmed from. And in fact, it also spurred on a little joke. Whenever the teacher of a game wins the game, we make fun of them. We're like,
bad teach.
hashtag bad teach. It's like, because we understand now, like, the teacher has a responsibility to not just crush everyone else and just make sure that everyone's having a good time. That's the job of the teacher of the game. Teach the game, not to play the game. I think that's where people go wrong early on, is they really want to play their favorite game.
Yeah.
And they also like winning, so they'll teach the game for the purpose of being able to play it and win it.
Yes.
And I think you have to sacrifice that going in. You have to realize this is about the players. This is
Okay.
about the game. This is not about me.
So now that we have your why don't you do the what, the how?
All right, so the first thing is you need to take the rule book. In most cases, right? There's some situations where a game shows up and you have a game scheduled of it that same day, and you're like, "This is going to be terrible. We're going to have to read it cold from the rule book."
Yeah, that happens.
That happens.
Everybody's done that.
We're throwing that out. We're talking about a game that you're familiar with, right?
Yes.
You want to read a rule book. You want to lay it out ahead of time. You want to play with the pieces. You want to know all the pieces are called so you can interact with them in the rule book. You want to digest that as much as you can ahead of time. You don't want to have to be teaching the rule book and then go have to flip to something. Now, individual, like how many starting coins does it start with in a 4-player game versus a 5-player game? I'm not talking about that kind of thing. I'm talking about the general rules of the game, how the game works. So you have to digest that. You have to internalize it, be able to communicate that to the other players in a way that is succinct, that is accurate. It's thematic, in fact, and it's got a little bit of entertainment value behind it as well.
Yeah.
There's the biggest bane to a teach is cell phones. People get out their cell phones and they are just going to look at that, right? So you have to be, and you're all guilty of it, or some of you at least, and I'm mad at you. But you have to be able to
Even
teach.
right now, you're watching this on your television and you're scrolling through Facebook. I know it's happening.
So in order to encourage that to go away without having to actually say, "Hey, put your phone away, please," because that can make you come across as like boring. You want to be visually involved. You want to have things laid out. You want to have to be able to touch things and play with things as you're talking about it and explain things how it goes. So that's kind of the main way you want to start off. The next thing you want to do is you want to just lay it all out. Have things visually to see. You want to explain the setting of the game. Yes, there are abstracts, and you can kind of say that. That could be the setting. Hey, this is an abstract game. I'm the brown pieces, and you are the gold pieces, or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, there's some kind of a setting to the game. Hey, this is 14th century France, and we are all landowners trying to develop this land. Or, hey, we are in 9th century Arabia, and we are trying to translate these scripts. Whatever the case is, there's some kind of a setting. Explain what the setting is and who you are within that setting. We are the owners of a zoo, and we are trying to cultivate that zoo in a way that is going to earn a lot of money, or whatever the case is. So we want to explain the setting, explain who you are in that setting. This is the first thing you want to lay out so people can kind of connect with their character, connect with what they're doing. If it's a thematic game that has individual characters, this is a great time to kind of spread that out as well. Hey, do you want to be the mayor of the town? Hey, do you want to be the whatever? And then the next thing I want to do is I want to explain what the end game goal is and how to get there.
Yeah.
So, okay, is money the end of the goal? Is there a certain amount of rounds? And we have to, what's the goal of the game? And how are you going to get there? Those are the next important things I want to teach. Who you are, what do you need to do?
Okay, so for those of you paying attention at home, you realize, as I've realized, you haven't even talked about how to play the game yet.
Yeah, no, you're starting off, you are not talking about the gameplay at all. You're getting them involved in the world.
Okay, yeah, you're just trying to draw people in so that way they're giving you their attention and they're basically invested to when you go to the next things that you're going to be talking about.
And a good game has the theme help you with the rules.
Yes. Yeah.
If we're minors, then that's why you can get dig action, instead of just like, there's a dig action you can take. Well, what does that mean?
Yes.
Well, because we're minors. But if
Yeah.
you tell them ahead of time, you don't have to do any explaining. And a good game's theme and mechanisms are tied together in a way that they're going to help each other.
Yes.
So give them the theme and the setting first, so that way they can get to that point. So you want to give them the scoring parameters, whatever that is, the win condition or whatever that is, in order to be able to explain how to get there. What's your path there? I think the most important thing next is, after they have the who's and they have the why's, then give them the how's.
Yeah.
So now they know who they are, they know where they are, they know how to get there. They don't know why. No, how did I say that right?
You're giving.
I messed up the who, what, where, when, why thing.
Yes,
But the point
yes.
is,
you told us who we are and how you win the game, and now you're saying how we actually. Yeah.
Exactly. At this point, this is how you're going to use the you're going to use the mechanisms to describe how to win the game.
Yeah.
You're going to use the game's mechanisms to accomplish your goals, whether they're short-term goals or long-term goals.
Yeah.
So maybe it is you're flicking this in order to get this, and you get points that way. Or maybe it's you're going to play these cards out in front of you in order to build this engine. The more cards you have in front of you, the stronger engine is going to be. You're going to, whatever it is, you're going to use the game's mechanisms to describe accomplish your goals.
The nice thing about this is once we understand like who I am and how to win, and you have that all set up, then Ryan will actually just pick up the pieces. So like it helps deter people from looking on their phones because he's actually interacting with parts on the board already, and not just like doing that right away. We're like, you can draw a card. Like, why would I want to draw a card? You can do this. You can pass this. Why would I want to? He's already explained the why I'm wanting to do it. So when he's going in and explaining what's happening with the board or what's happening with the cards, I'm oftentimes more invested in what's happening because I understand a little bit about how that's going to be incorporated into me trying to win the game.
Yeah, using those visual aids, being able to connect the words that I'm saying with something tangible, kind of helps lock that in a lot more. Now, some rules aren't necessarily relevant at the beginning of a game, right? There's going to be something that is going to happen later on that does not affect the beginning of the game. Get them into the gameplay as soon as possible.
It might even be too much.
Yeah, exactly. They can be overwhelmed. But if you teach them the entirety of the game's rules, every little minor exception, every little whatever, they're going to be overwhelmed. Just get them to where they can start playing their first round or two, and then kind of spoon feed them a little bit more as the game goes on. So, for instance, in a game like Arc Nova, I'll explain vaguely that, hey, there's going to be an income phase when we get to this point. You're going to get more money. I'll explain how that works when we get to our first income phase. So that way they're not having to think ahead of time of, like, I don't know what that means or anything, just... So we're going to get there, we're going to play the game, the first round is going to end, we're going to do our first income phase, and then I'm going to walk through what an income phase looks like when it's happening live in real time and it's relevant to them right then and there. And then for all the subsequent income phases, it'll have been locked in because I didn't front load them with information that wasn't going to be relevant to them later on.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important thing. Same thing with like Scholars of the South Tigris, that has a similar thing going on where there's some of the rules where you can just like wait until they're relevant and then teach them. A lot of games have those that little bits of information that, okay, now this is for the first time, this now is coming up, I'll explain it to you once we hit that point.
Yeah, Ryan doesn't like say, psych, this is happening. He lets us know later on in the game, this thing is happening. And when we get there, we'll talk about it. So it's not like you're like, you didn't tell me about that. It's never like that. It's always like, giving the player the information they need to start playing the game, and then giving them the information they need to play the game strategically. So you're just branching out just a little bit so people can play the game strategically.
And the same thing I do with the end of the game. So now we're kind of approaching the end of the game.
Yeah.
I might say, hey, end of the game is triggered when this happens. And so 3/4 of the way through the game, or nearing the end point, I might say, don't forget, this is how the game end is triggered. Be watching for that, and stuff like that. So you want to kind of give them a little bit of awareness. Hey, get your last cards in, fulfill your last contracts, do whatever it is, because the game is about to finish up. So make sure you get your last amount of points, rack those in as early as you can. And then when the game end does happen, if we have individual scoring, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have myself score first. I'll say, okay, I'll walk you through how to do your own scoring by watching me go first. Seven Wonders is a game that's really important.
Yes.
The first time you play Seven Wonders, a lot of it's not going to click. But then watching someone else do scoring, okay, so I had some of these, this is how the points look like for all the different categories. Now do your own. It's like, oh, that's how it works. And everything kind of clicks once that scoring has happened. Ideally, you don't want to have the game click at the scoring point, but at least have the scoring click during the scoring part of the game. Yeah. So that's how that works. Okay,
so sometimes everybody knows this. We mentioned earlier, you do just read a game cold, you play it with your game group, all of that. But you're talking about mainly when you're teaching a game that you're familiar with,
right,
and you're wanting other people to play it. And I know specifically that there's another thing that you do when you're teaching people new to a game that you're very familiar with. There's an additional step that I know that you take. So why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, so in general, I'm not... This whole kind of teaching how to teach a game does not necessarily apply to a card game, a simple card game, or
Yeah.
a kids or a family
Basically,
game.
if I can teach the game, it does not apply to this.
I'm talking mainly this kind of thing about the bigger, heavier, more involved, complex games. That's the kind of games that require this level of background into the teach.
Yeah.
So I would say the main thing that I do when I'm teaching a game that I love, I'm familiar with it, and I'm pretty good at, and I'm playing with a group of people that don't know how to play it.
Like Luna.
Yeah, and I'm teaching them for the first time.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to teach them all the game, right, as best I can. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a strategy that I am not familiar with. Something I've never tried before. I might do some weird off-the-wall things just to try them. Because if I play the way that I know how to play, I'm going to win. It's just the reality of
You're
those.
just familiar with it.
Experience is gonna win most of those kind of heavy strategy games, which is fine. It's how they're supposed to be. That's how they're designed. But it's unsatisfying for me. I crushed someone who didn't know how to play. Good for me.
Yay!
It's like the people at the beginning of our story. It's like, great job, you beat us. We didn't know what we were doing. Do you really feel that good about it?
Good job.
And similarly, the people that we're playing with, they're gonna be like, oh, that was great. And so you have to either do two things. Either you have to pump the brakes hardcore, in which case you're sacrificing your own fun for everyone else's fun, which is unsatisfying to you, or you play your own way, and then you crush everybody else, and then they're having a bad day. So the way that I suggest, and just trying a weird new strategy that you've never tried before that's unproven, you still get to go 100% towards that new weird way of playing. Well, they get to play at 100% of their inexperienced way, and in that way, it kind of balances things out.
Another thing that you do, let's say there isn't a weird avenue to take, just with how the game is set up. Ryan is often very, he's talking through why he's doing what he's doing. Like, I've won this game a lot. I'm familiar with this game. Not enemy. I won this game a lot, which is
hopefully I don't see that.
I'm familiar with this game. Okay, this is what I'm trying to do. If I can get 5 of these, this is what's going to happen. It would behoove you to make sure I don't get 5 of these. He's not trying to be sneaky about it. If there really isn't another avenue you can take, if it really is the game is this is what you do, then he just is kind of having an open dialogue about his game. Not throughout the whole game, because he didn't have to. Because after about, I don't know, a third, about a third through, the other players really understand what they're doing and are able to internalize what Ryan's doing for their own strategy, and also to watch out for what he's doing so that also doesn't happen. So those are the two things that Ryan does often when he's teaching a game that he's familiar with, but maybe the people he's teaching aren't as familiar with.
Exactly. Just be open with your turns. Don't try to do any kind of sneak attack moves as the teacher. That just isn't going to be what makes you want to come back and play the game with you.
Essentially, you're the host of that game. And when you're hosting people at your house, you're not like, okay, go fend for yourself. You're like, no, can I get you something to drink? Did you, we keep our house really cold, so we're we have a space heater. I'm just, examples. You're hosting people, and so when you're teaching the game, you're, hosting people at that game.
Exactly. The goal of gaming is to have fun, right? Yeah. That's number one. But then the goal of teaching a game is not for you to win the game. The goal is to make sure in the future everyone else has a clear understanding of what the game is.
Yeah.
So if you come into to a game mindset with, I want to play this game, it's a game I love, I want to play it with these people, I think they're going to love it too, and then you crush them, or you don't explain it well.
Hashtag bad teach.
Hashtag bad teach. But the goal then should be more long term. Don't think about things short term. Think long term. If I teach this well and they have a good time playing it, they're going to be more likely to want to play it with me in the future. Yeah. So you sacrifice that one play of, you're not even really sacrificing it, but you are sacrificing your optimal play style for that one teach, that one gameplay, in order to make sure that A, everyone else had a good time at the table, and B, now they understand it, and now they're going to be able to be more competitive on your future subsequent plays.
Yeah.
Another thing that can be really challenging is if you're playing with someone else who does know it, then they try to interrupt your teach. That's something I want to bring up. Shut them down. It can come across a little mean. I think you have to do it.
Yeah, you do.
I think you have to say, hey, I got this. No, don't worry about it. I'll teach it, and then if I miss anything, I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
That way you still get to involve them, but you control the teach. Because if you have a clear set, this is the way I'm going to teach it. I've taught this many times. I know what the best way to convey this thing is. And they jump in with, don't forget to tell me about whatever, or whatever it is. You got to shut them down. Gently, politely, but make sure you control the teach.
Yeah, yeah.
Same
and
thing
even that's not as bad of somebody saying, remember to tell them about something, because they're not trying to teach, they're talking to you. So that's not nearly as bad as when Ryan's teaching and then somebody's like, and then you can blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, get your hand off this board. This isn't for you right now.
And then questions. When someone has a question and it's something that you will be covering later on and they're not ready for it yet, don't be afraid to say, oh, no problem. I'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But if it is something that's
or
sort
if
of
you're
relevant,
our child, we'll say, don't talk. Let dad talk.
if it is something that is relevant to that exact moment, go ahead and answer the question.
Yeah.
And then throughout the course of the game, answer all questions with generosity. Give them everything they possibly need.
Yep. So that is great. I just wanted you guys to hear why I think I'm really spoiled and what I think Ryan does really good when it comes to teaching games. He is very good. He has learned a lot about this and he implements all of that very well. But we, as always, want to hear from you. Are you the main person that teaches the games in your group? What are some tips and tricks that you found out? Let us know in the comments below. Is there anything that Ryan said that really resonates with you? Something that you've implemented or something that you're going to take away from this? Let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, thanks so much for watching. Hope this is a fun topic for you. But yeah, we will talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye. You guys, thanks for watching our shenanigans. As always, we appreciate it. Over here, if you follow this link, you're going to find a playlist we've handcrafted just for you because you watched this video.
And if you check over here, this is a video that YouTube thinks you might like. So you can check that out if you want as well.
All right, we appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next time.
Bye.